But it is a big deal for those kinds of things because many of those kinds of big society meetings bring in thousands upon thousands of people and invaded the country of Ukraine. And it can be easy to be caught up in the ideas of, you know, one side versus the other, and this is that. And I certainly have been given some of my own family history with this, um, and you know, what I where I approach this from for this channel is that science as a discipline is really a global enterprise, and it's a very human enterprise, which is why it becomes important in times like these to think of what's going to happen. I know this is minor compared to the loss of life on the ground and between both Russians and Ukrainians. That part is horrific. I'm not belittling that in any way. But I am concerned, as others have been, for what this is going to mean for the interactions of scientists that work across boundaries, really, because you know, scientists from all over the world end up working with each other on different projects, on different activities all over the world. And so it's when we get into situations with war, or even with countries that just strongly disagree with each other, you end up in some difficult and challenging situations. And there's some things going on now that, you know, you're concerned about. And so and that's the reason I bring this up, is this science article comes to mind. And as I said, I'm not usually one to like science, given some of their more woke nonsense that they've occasionally done. But in this case, I find myself in something of a bit of an agreement here. Because the big challenge now for scientists who are working, you know, scientists in the Western countries, in Europe, in America, in other countries around the world, may run into the problem of, you know, how do you are you going to be able to work with somebody, because it's not just financial sanctions or anything like that we're dealing with right now. It is a question of, you know, in the world we live in, are scientists themselves and journal publications and what have you going to get invested in stopping work with Russian scientists while this is going on? And that's distinctly horrible, because this article, as you might be able to guess by the title here, A Step to Nowhere, Russian Scientists Organizes Protest of Ukraine War, you might guess very well that a lot of Russian scientists probably don't want this, and that's why I'm highlighting this. Is a lot of Russian scientists don't want this any more than other things. And I mean, it makes me think very much with what's going on now. As you can see, the gentleman being manhandled here by the, well, not manhandled, being escorted away by the police, and you can't say manhandling in this shot, but you know, it reminds me of some of the things under Trofim Lysenko and Stalin that happened. This is nowhere near the level of that. I'm just saying it reminds me of that to a degree, in that dissenting scientists from the government were not treated very well. So that's why I wanted to focus a little bit on this, to highlight a few things, and then I will mention something else at the end I have not had confirmation of, but I would love to know if this is actually legitimately happening per the commentary of the journals and the publishers themselves. So we will get to that in a second. Mikhail Gelfand's anti-war letter has drawn hundreds of signatures from Russian scientists. This morning, hours after... Okay, so this is what? February 24th, so this is a few days old. This morning, hours after Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Mikhail Gelfand canceled his regular lecture on comparative genomics and instead had a heart-to-heart conversation with his students over Zoom. Quote, "I'm an old man," says the bioinformatics specialist at the Skolkovo Institute of Science and Technology near Moscow, rattling off a list of wrenching political events he's witnessed, from the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991, an attempted communist putsch. I know I'm not pronouncing that I'm not pronouncing that correctly. in 1993 to Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. The episodes of turmoil, he says, are, quote, like a very old sore. It bothers you, it's painful, but you know how to live with it, end quote. For Gelfand's shocked students, however, the attack against their neighbor had left them with, quote, a feeling of helplessness, their teacher says. After the Zoom call, some of the students took to the streets to join the many decrying Russia's actions, according to news reports. Police arrested hundreds of protesters. Meanwhile, Gelfand, whose wife is half Ukrainian, gathered signatories to a protest letter published on TRV Nauka, an independent science news site that he helps edit. Signed so far by more than 370 Russian scientists and science journalists, the letter denounces a war it says will turn Russia into a pariah. Quote, this means that we scientists will no longer be able to do our job normally. After all, conducting scientific research is unthinkable without cooperation with colleagues from other countries, the letter states. The war with Ukraine is a step to nowhere. And this is on a broader level when you're thinking of science. Science is, as I've said many times on this channel, a very human discipline. It is very much connected to different groups of people working on the same thing all around the world, end up talking with each other. So it's like, I know colleagues in the UK, I know colleagues in Africa, I know colleagues in China, I know colleagues from Korea, folks from all over the world who get involved in doing science. And you end up working with them because you share a common interest in answering particular questions, and a common desire for that pursuit of the truth that science is. And so, the challenge is when that pursuit of the truth crosses with the interests of a country or the interests of a dictator or the interests of a communist regime. And that's where Gelfand here is talking about it. If there's war that breaks out in other parts of the world, it is very difficult sometimes for scientists to work with each other, not because the scientists themselves don't want to work with each other, but rather because the different governmental powers that be will not allow it. So let's continue with this, because this is a really fascinating piece. As Science Insider was speaking with Gelfand, Russian troops were advancing deeper into Ukraine and had just seized control of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Russia's scientific community is already experiencing collateral damage. The UK, Canadian, French, Polish, and US math societies all have announced they will not participate in the International Congress of Mathematicians to be held in St. Petersburg, Russia in July. And this is what I mean, is that this is what I'm starting to ask about. In the past, it might have been the case that scientists didn't get invested in what was going on between governments and we just tried to do our work. But now, the world that we live in, there are different scientists trying to make a stand against what Putin has done, which is horrific. He had no reason to be there. It is, from my view, it is an unprovoked attack on the people of Ukraine. So that would be my point in that, in terms of what I think politically on it. But the question now is, for the scientific community, what are they going to do in response to some of these things? Because science is such a global enterprise. And this is one heck of a big thing to say, UK, Canada, France, Poland, the US, all of their respective mathematics societies, all these professional societies will not be allowing their will not be attending. I don't know offhand if that means that, they won't allow their members to attend. I would presume that might mean that the societies themselves will not be financially supporting any of the members that go, but that is not clear from this thing here, obviously. But it is a big deal for those kinds of things, because many of those kinds of big society meetings bring in thousands upon thousands of people. In the US, I know with like the American Geophysical Union meeting, you can have 30,000 people come to a city for a week. And that is a huge boom economically for the city that hosts it. And so that's a heck of a blow for that to happen. So the conversation between Science Insider and Gelfand was edited for brevity and clarity. Question: when did you realize the invasion would be a certainty? Answer: one of my students asked me this question last Friday. I said there will be no war. I was stupid. I underestimated the level of craziness. I'm going to say we all underestimated the level of craziness in today's world. Some of your students bravely joined the protests today. Did you counsel them on the risks? They're grown-ups, it's their decision, but they are not morally obligated to do this. If they have parents that depend on them, I told them they shouldn't go. Nobody needs to be a hero. And that's entirely a choice. I applaud him for saying it's their own choice to make. What do you hope to accomplish with the open letter? 3 things. 1. To demonstrate that the Russian scientific community is not the same as Russian leadership. Second thing is to demonstrate to our Ukrainian colleagues that we object to what our government is doing, and we are doing what we can to stop it. And the third thing, to demonstrate the same to the international community in hope that any actions to punish Russia are weighted in such a way as to not punish, there's a typo, the very people who object to what Russia is doing. And this is exactly the point. And I'll keep harping on it. Science is a very global discipline. The scientific method, the scientific practice is a very human component. It's not a Western component. It's a very human component to how we get at the truth. And so it can be really hampered by conflicts like this, actually. And I hope there is some understanding that the Russian community of scientists is not the same as the Russian government. That happens quite frequently, that the scientific community is not necessarily the same as its government in the respective country. They don't necessarily think or feel the same way about something. And think about the different administrations you've had in the U.S. and how different they probably have been from the majority of the scientists and whatever their leanings have been. And so there's the same kind of thing here. And so I hope he's very successful with that in this open letter, Mr. Gelfand. And I hope he's safe and well, given that he's saying this against Putin, who's not known for liking protesters. Let's see. After Crimea was annexed, Western sanctions on Russia threw up some barriers to collaboration. Do you expect more profound isolation now? I'm deeply concerned. It's already difficult to purchase equipment. I know colleagues who couldn't get sequencing machines because they're considered dual use for peaceful and military aims. My fellow faculty members who are experimental biologists will be hit tremendously. I also worry about visa decisions. Actions that target individuals or individual projects should be considered on a case-by-case basis. And that is a fair thing to be concerned about. And this is actually where I'm concerned right now. I'm hearing, I hesitate to say this, but I think I'm going to just for this video. And if somebody can come to me and send me something to show this, but I have been hearing from some of my academic colleagues in different parts of the country, in different parts of the world, that some journals and their editorial boards have made the decision to, for the moment, refuse to publish anything that is authored by a Russian scientist. And that is a really, really bad idea. I don't have confirmation of it. I would love to see it in a written policy, or I would love to see someone come on and say what that is. So I take that with a very big grain of salt. But I am hearing rumors of that from my academic colleagues. In other disciplines, I haven't heard that with respect to climate science right now. So that's a serious, serious concern. Just because the scientist is Russian doesn't mean you should stop them from being published. You should not, that goes right against the normative principle of universalism, you should not be slamming down somebody's work because of their nationality. Just because somebody is Russian doesn't make them a bad scientist. You should be publishing the work anyway, or at least considering the work for publication. You should not be rejecting it out of hand because of somebody being Russian and having to deal with a government that they probably have nothing to do with at this point. So that's the point I want to make with that one, is that's a bad idea. I haven't, again, if anybody out there has heard that or has some knowledge of a journal that has done that somehow, in the last couple of days or in the last couple of weeks, let me know, because I would love to see the documentation of that. But that is what I keep hearing from different channels of academia that I pay attention to. How about ties with Ukrainian scientists? After the annexation of Crimea, I went to Ukraine a couple times for public lectures. Neanderthal genomics, molecular evolution. I felt it was my duty to nurture a link between Russian and Ukrainian scientists. Now I'm afraid that is no longer possible. Yeah, it's gonna be tough. after this. I don't know what's going to happen for them scientifically, and on after the amount of brutality that there has been reportedly. It's very hard to tell right now with the fog of war going on, but the amount of brutality there reportedly, it's going to make it very difficult for Russia and Ukrainian scientists to work together again. And it may make it much tougher for Russian scientists to get what they need for their work because of the government that doesn't represent anyone very well there. But that's just what I wanted to talk about to this. I'm going to keep it very short today. But, let me know what you think, because this is certainly an issue. And how do we deal with doing science that is, we're more connected than ever. You reach out and work with scientists from the other parts of the world all the time as a scientist in academia. It's a very regular thing. But this is one of those kinds of things that makes it extremely difficult when, different governments and political nationalities and what have you are involved. That's it for now. Let me know what you think. If you like this video, hit the like button on the way out the door. Subscribe to the video, share the video, all that good jazz. And until next time, I am Adrian, and I hope you stay curious. Oh, shoot. I'm Adrian, and I hope you stay curious. Don't forget to come on over to shiosofia.locals.com to join us over there for all sorts of fun things. The promo code's expired for now, but there may be another one sometime in the near future. But come on over and join us. We'll have a lot of fun. Thank you for that. All of y'all have a wonderful time. Until next time, I'm Adrian, and I hope you stay curious, my friends.